Hello, and happy World School Milk Day from your friends at the Dairy Alliance. I'm your host. My name is Michaela Mitchell, and I work on behalf of dairy farmers in the Southeast, bringing you recipes, information, and connecting you with all that dairy has to offer. Now, you might be joining us today with your class via Zoom or enjoying the Facebook Live. However you're connecting with us, we are delighted that you're here, and we want you to please feel free to ask questions as we go along, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. If you're watching in Zoom, type your questions into the Q&A box. If you've joined via Facebook Live, you can drop your questions into the comments section. And for lots of dairy fun facts in Zoom, be sure to click the closed caption, the CC button, and select Show Subtitles. And you'll get lots of fun little information that way. Now, today we are at Harvest Home Creamery, which is on the northwest side of Oldham County in Kentucky. And you are in for such a treat because dairy farmers Bob and Angie Klingenfuss are going to show you around and give you the behind the scenes tour at how their dairy farm operates. Bob and Angie, please say hello to our virtual tour attendees and tell them a little bit about Harvest Home Creamery.
Yes, welcome to Harvest Home Dairy. I'm Bob Klingenfuss. This is my wife, Angie, and my business partner.
Hi there.
I'll give you a little background on this, on the size of our dairy operation. We currently milk about 40 cows. We raise about 150 acres of corn and 150 acres of soybeans, which is more than adequate for the feed for our cows. We also raise about 300 acres of hay. We process a portion of our milk into cheese and do farm chores. We share the duties on the farm. Um, um, Angie, she can explain to you what she does on the farm.
Well, I raise the newborn calves. I also take care of the reproduction, the health, and the treatment of the cows. I help out in the fields, and I also run the lab for the cheese plant.
So you can see Angie does all the work.
It looks to me like you guys are a great team. Tell me, how long have you been farming there at Harvest Home?
We bought the farm in 1972, and actually I started dairy farming in 1964, but I bought this farm in 72, so we've been here for about a little over 45 years. And
Wow, that is awesome. Well, thank you, Bob and Angie. Now, I know that everyone who is joining us for this tour, they are very anxious to meet the calves, which are the babies and the future of the farm. So Bob and Angie, while you make your way over to the calf barn, I'm going to tell folks a little bit about a special opportunity we have for them. We'll see you on the flip side, okay?
thank you.
Okay.
All right. Now, while they're walking over, I want to ask all of you guys out there if you are all set with your classroom this year. And what I mean by that is, have you ever considered getting a cow for your classroom? You know, forget the guinea pig. Your class needs a calf. So don't do it now. Wait until the tour is over. But once we finish up, head to discoverdairy.com and you can adopt your very own classroom cow. Throughout this program, you will find out her name, her birthday, where she lives, how her farm family takes care of her. And it's really through the continued generosity of our dairy farm families that your class will receive photos of your cow, activity sheets, lesson plans. Just make sure that you head over there by October 15th, because this is a special opportunity and you definitely don't want to miss it. So I know that is so exciting. I want to check in, speaking of calves, and just see how we are doing. It looks like Bob and Angie have made it to the calf barn and are ready to tell us all about how they take care of the calves at Harvest Home. Angie, take it away.
Well, welcome to the Calf Barn. But before we come in, I'd like to take you through the life cycle of a newborn calf. When the mama calf is close to her due date, we put her in a smaller area at the other barn and watch her very carefully so she can deliver her calf, and if she needs help, we'll help her. When she does have her calf, within 12 hours, we take her first milk, which is called colostrum, and it's very rich and thick and full of antibodies. Now, those antibodies are very important for the calf's immunity, but we also vaccinate just in case. So the calf gets an oral vaccination called for rotocoronavirus. She also gets a combination injection for E. coli, Pasteurella, Salmonella, and Mannaheimia. The calf also gets its navel dipped in a 7% iodine. And the heifer calves, which will enter the herd eventually back to the other barn, will get a metal ear clip with her identification number. Now, the cow and the calf, they'll stay together for about 2 days, and then I'll test the cow's milk to make sure it's safe to go into the bulk tank with the rest of the cow's milk. And then it'll either be sold or made into cheese. That's when the newborn calf comes to the calf barn here. They each get their own little pen. They're bedded down in straw, and they also have a tag with their name and their birth date, their identification number, and the mother's number. They also get a milk replacer. It's a powdered milk that's mixed with warm water. This is half a gallon, and they get it twice a day. They'll be on this powdered milk for about 6 to 7 weeks, and at about 7 weeks of age is about when it's time to wean them. Now, at the time of weaning, they should be eating this nice, sweet molasses feed. They should be eating about 4 pounds of this by the time they're weaned off of the milk. They're also gaining weight very rapidly. So they have free choice water also. Once I do wean them, I'll do only 1 bottle of this milk once a day for about 5 days, and then they're set to be weaned. Then I'll take about a group of 5. They're about the same age, same weight, and we move them and put them down here into a weanling pen. And that's where they get a different grain mix, and they get put on hay also. Now, those weanling pens, those calves will stay in the barn all winter long, and then in the springtime, when the weather warms up, I'll combine about 3 pens, and they'll go outside, and they'll be eating 5 pounds of grain each, and then they get grass hay. Now, I'd like to show you how cute these little calves really are. So we're going to bring one out and show her to you.
That's great. Angie, while you're walking her out, we do have a question from Washington Center in Greenville, South Carolina. And they would like to know, how many acres does it take to raise a cow?
It's going to, let me get that one for you. I want to get that one for Angie. It's going to be dependent. If it was total pasture, it's probably going to take 3 acres anyway, but you're not going to get much milk yield. If you're normally for a normal dairy where they're harvesting corn silage and harvest it mechanically instead of just grazing, you're probably going to have 1 cow per acre. It's going to take that much ground to supply the feed for her to eat.
Okay, great. Thanks. Go ahead, Angie.
Okay, well, this is Mercedes. She's a month old yesterday. She's a 3/4 Jersey, 1/4 Holstein calf. And she weighed probably about 85 pounds when she was born. And her mother's name is Melania. And we're going to give her a little bottle of milk here. And she'll be entering the herd in about 2 years.
Oh, she looks like she's doing a great job with her milk. I have another question about how many calves are born on your farm each year.
Right now, because we're down in cow numbers, we'll have about, probably about 40 calves a year now.
Okay, great.
Some will be heifers and some will be bull calves.
We have another question, and someone is curious why the calves are in little pens by themselves.
Well, we do that for a very good reason, because the first 2 weeks are very important in the calf's life. So we have to watch her bowel movement. We want to watch how much grain she eats and how much water she drinks. And we don't want the calves passing germs back and forth to each other. So that's why we keep them separated.
Okay, so it sounds like it's just really a safety issue for them and to keep them.
Yes, it is. It's mostly for health reasons.
All right, Sherry would like to know, why isn't Mercedes black and white?
Well, that's because she's a crossbred, and I've crossed her mother when she was ready to breed. I crossed her with a Jersey bull to make a half Jersey and half Holstein calf.
Okay, great. And then Nathan and Lily would like to know if cows can have more than one baby.
Yes, about 5-6 times a year we'll have a set of twins, and we actually years ago we had one set of triplet heifers.
Wow. Gosh, these calves are just, they're so interesting and fun. We have one more question. How big will Mercedes get?
Well, because she is crossed with one of the Jersey breed is one of the smallest of the dairy breeds, so she won't get as big as a pure Holstein. So she'll probably weigh about 1,400 pounds when she's an adult.
Very, very cool. And I think where we're headed on our tour next, we're actually going to be able to see those adult cows and see them full grown. I know we could spend probably the whole tour, with the calves. Everyone loves the calves. We do too, but there's so many more interesting things that we want to show you at Harvest Home. So Bob and Angie, I know you're going to be making your way over to the compost barn. So we will see you on the flip side. Now, while Bob and Angie are making their way over, I have a question for all of you at home. And this, we do want to hear from you. We want you to participate. So here is my question. How many times can dairy farmers use the same gallon of water on the farm? Do you think it's once? Do you think it's 4 times? Or do you think that they can use that same gallon of water 7 times on their farm? So in order to give your answer, I want you to just type that in the Q&A box on Zoom or drop it in the comments on the Facebook Live. I'm so curious to hear what you think. We want to hear from you. And while we're waiting for those responses to start coming in, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I pretty much only use the same gallon of water at my house 1 time. I shower, it's down the drain, it's gone. Maybe with cooking, I could say that we reuse it because we eat our leftovers, but I think even that is a stretch. So it does look like some responses are starting to come in. Looks like 4, there's a lot of 4s. It looks like maybe a 1 or 2 7s. So why don't we take a look and find out the real answer here? They're gonna pop that in for me. Or I'll just go ahead and tell you. So there it is. You see, dairy farmers can use that same gallon of water 4 times on their farm. I think that's incredible. And I want us to take a closer look at how that works. When farmers are growing crops, they can reuse water from other practices on the farm. So for example, after they have cooled the milk, because the milk comes out of the cow at the cow's temperature, but it needs to be refrigerated. So that first use of water can be to cool milk. And then after that, it can be used to clean equipment and clean barns. And then that water can be, again, reused to water crops that are going to feed the cows. So in this case, an added benefit of the reused water is that it's been enriched by all the manure that it cleared in the barns. So it's pretty amazing the way that dairy farmers are able to recycle on their farm. And I don't know about you, but my home definitely has some work to do on recycling to catch up to our dairy farmers. So good job, dairy farmers. Now it looks like Bob and Angie have made their way to the compost barn, and we're excited to learn more about what goes on there. Take it away, Bob.
Where we're at right now is our compost barn, and this is the area. This area to the right here is where the cows sleep and live most of their life. And here's this area here behind me is the feed bunk. It's a buffet where they get all they want to eat. And how the life of our cows in the morning, how it starts out for them, they're milked about 5 o'clock in the morning, and we're done milking about 7. And at 7 o'clock, we open the gate and they can go out in the pasture and graze for a while. Uh, they don't like the heat of the day, so they're going to come back up here to the barn at around 10 o'clock. At that time, we're feeding the silage. They prefer this TMR ration we have mixed for them. They have their own nutritionist that samples their feed every day, every month, and balances a ration. And this is basically what they're eating. It's a mixture of chopped up hay, corn silage, and corn silage is it's a whole corn stalk, all chopped up real fine and fermented. It's kind of like sauerkraut. And then they're going to get a mixture of a ground shell corn and soybean meal, and maybe some roasted soybeans. That's about like roasted peanuts. Uh, they really like this diet because they'll leave the pasture to come up here and eat this instead of the grass. It's a lot more nutritious too than the grass. Now, cows have 4 stomachs, which makes them unique. They The first stomach is just a big fermentation vat full of bacteria, and the bacteria is what's actually eating the hay and the corn silage. So when the nutritionist comes, he's balancing a ration for the bacteria in the cow's stomach. And then the cow eats the bacteria in the next 3 stomachs. Because if you look at this, what I've got in my hand here, these are not, you cannot eat grass and digest it, but the cow can because of that bacteria. I guess I could talk a little bit more about. Well, I guess the cows. The cows are going to eat about 100 pounds of feed a day apiece, and you can expect to get as much as 100 pounds of milk from that 100 pounds of feed. And that would be a very efficient cow, but most of our cows are pretty efficient in this country right now. The average cow in the United States now is given about 9 gallons of milk per cow per day, and there's about 1 cow for every 30 people in the United States. I'll move over here a little bit to the compost, and we'll talk a little bit about it. What the cows are sleeping on here is sawdust and manure mixed together. We take a machine here. It's kind of like a large rototiller that you use in your garden, and we mix air and the sawdust and the manure together, and the bacteria digest that, and it heats up. And the process of heating it up makes it more stable, where it doesn't break down as easy. If y'all can remember in your classes about photosynthesis, you remember that in photosynthesis, you're taking CO2 and water and combining it together to make sugar. Well, that process is reducing the CO2 in the atmosphere, which is helping our global warming. Okay, now if we can, that sugar, when you use it, it's released back into the CO2. If you burn it up, it's releasing the CO2 back into the atmosphere. But when we put it in a compost, we've sequestered that carbon and the CO2 in the compost, and it doesn't get released. And we're going to use that for our fertilizer for our crops. We'll probably have up to 2,000 tons of that, and instead of buying fertilizer, we're going to use this and recycle the manure and from the cows back into our crops. So we haven't bought any fertilizer other than nitrogen for the last 25 years. One of the benefits we get from using the compost is it raises our organic matter in the soils. In our area here locally, we get about we have the ability to store about 10 inches of water in our soil. And in the summertime, we use about a half an inch of that water a day. So if you divide a half an inch a day into 10 inches, we're going to have a rain about every 3 weeks or the crop's going to die. If we can raise the organic matter with this stored carbon in the soil, we can gain 3 more inches, 3 more days of between rains before the crop dies. Because 1% will add another inch and a half of water holding capacity to the ground every time it rains.
Wow, that just I'm always blown away, Bob, by all of the different things that you dairy farmers have to think about, to be able to run your operation and run it well and take the best care of those cows. I have a few questions from some of our attendees. Samantha Richardson would like to know, why do cows eat their cud?
They're through history, they're genetically from deer and buffalo and animals like that. So what they would have done, they would gobbled up a whole lot of grass and then gone hid in the bushes in the day from the predators, and then they would have chewed it and tried to digest it all day long. So when our cows eat, this feed right here, she could eat 50 pounds of feed probably in 15 or 20 minutes, and then it'll be sitting in her stomach fermenting, and she'll spit it back up and chew on it and break it on down later make it easier for the bacteria to eat, break it down. There's in what I mean, it's going to get a little complicated for you, but when we do photosynthesis, you get sugar as the first product you're going to get. What plants will do then, when they get too much sugar, they'll combine 5 or 6 sugars together and you get starch. And if you combine a couple hundred of them together, you get cellulose. Now, the starch can be broken down by ourselves. If you've ever eaten a saltine cracker, you'll notice it tastes a little sweet. You have an enzyme in your saliva that breaks down that starch back into a sugar, and that's that sweet taste. But we cannot break down cellulose. Basically, if you put some sawdust in your mouth, it's not going to taste sweet. But to bacteria, it does, because they have an enzyme that can break that back down.
Well, thank goodness for cows. Hey, Shannon would like to know, are cows soft?
Could you repeat that?
Shannon would like to know, are cows soft?
Soft?
They're
Soft?
yes,
Soft.
their hair is very soft, and with this brush, they use this every day to brush up their hair and fluff it up, and they use it to relax and relieve any stress that they may have, although I don't think they have any stress here. And also in the springtime, they use the brush to take all that extra hair off when they're starting to shed.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
We've got the big fans. We've got big fans on the cows, 24 feet in diameter, to keep them cool all day. And then if that's not enough, when they get packed up in a small area, we take and put fans on them and spray a little bit of water on them at the same time.
Yes.
So anything we can do to make them feel better, we're going to do, because if they feel good, they give us more milk.
Right, and they like those cool temperatures. So I know the cows are glad that fall is here, as are the rest of us. Well, it looks like it's time for us to go ahead and move on to the milking parlor, so that we can see what goes on in there. Maybe we could ask a couple questions while you're walking. Would that work?
Yes.
Okay. Jennifer would like to know why some cows have 2 tags in their ears.
They originally had 2, and they've lost one. It's like losing your earring.
Oh, yes, that happens to me all the time. I can relate.
If you here, turn around, get the number. Okay. We also freeze brand our cows, because we lose their identification when they lose those tags, and then that we get up on the deck. I can show you one in the barn, I think. But
Okay.
what it's a process where we find a black spot on the cow, shave the hair off as close as we can, put some rubbing alcohol in it, and then we take a branding iron like you were going to hot brand the cow, only we put it in liquid nitrogen, and get it to be 230 degrees below zero. Hold it on that black spot and for 45 seconds, and it kills the pigment in the hair, and the hair grows back white. So she'll have a white numbers on her side to identify her for the rest of her life. And those
Okay.
numbers get bigger as she gets bigger.
Okay. Well, that is very interesting. It looks like you've made it to the milking parlor. So why don't you tell us what goes on in the milking parlor?
We need to keep our distance. What Angie's getting ready to do was doing right here. She's pre-dipping the cows with a mild chlorine solution, and that's to try and kill any bacteria and germs that we can. And then she's going to come back in a few seconds here with a paper towel and dry the teats off and clean them as best she can, and squirt a little bit of milk out of each tit to make sure the milk's okay. That's what she's doing here right now.
Okay, so they're getting prepped. And how many cows can you milk at once in the milking parlor?
Eight on each side. We're only using one side because we're reduced to our herd side. We keep 8 on the side. It takes about 15 minutes for a cow to give all her milk out.
Okay, so about 15 minutes when she comes in to get milked. And then how many times a day do the cows visit the milking parlor?
A minimum of 2. A lot of dairies milk them 3 times a day.
Okay, but your cows there at Harvest Home, they come in twice per day?
Yeah, ours come in twice a day.
Okay.
The action of what Angie's doing right now will stimulate the cow to want to give milk. She's going to release a hormone, oxytocin, that'll make her get relaxed, and then all that milk will want to come down out of her udder. And it takes about 90 seconds for that reaction to happen from the time she touches her. So if we were doing the whole 8 cows down through here, it takes about 90 seconds to do. Takes 90 seconds to do 8 cows, and she's putting the milkers on right now.
Okay. So with the milkers, so now the milk is coming out of the cow and into, where does it go?
You know, it starts showing in this weigh jar right down here at the bottom.
Okay. So it looks like the milk is flowing there.
Yeah.
So tell us about this process.
Now, that weigh jar is calibrated so we can tell how much milk the cow gave, and we record the milk weights on the cows, and they get graded basically. So if a cow's giving a lot of milk, she's going to stay in the herd.
Okay. Hey, Kirby and Jordan want to know, how much milk can one cow produce in a day?
The average cow is going to be about 75 to 80 pounds, but we have had a cow that could give. We had a cow give 175 pounds. That's 20 gallons of milk in one day.
Wow, that's amazing. Ms. Henderson's class wants to know if milking hurts the cows.
I couldn't repeat it for me.
Ms. Henderson's class, she would like to know, does milking hurt the cows?
No, it shouldn't. If you're in trouble, if it does, she's going to let you know. It should be a pleasurable experience. That these cows, well, the whole herd, probably 80 to 90% of them will come in here and want to be milked. Now we're going to have 2 or 3 that are just timid and not interested. We'll have to walk them. You don't have to hit them, but you have to encourage them to come in the barn a little bit. But it should be a pleasurable experience. Just if the cow's upset, if we were to throw a cat up on the cow's back, she would get excited and release the hormone adrenaline, and it would counteract the oxytocin, and she would just completely quit giving milk. If I could demonstrate to you, if I was to hit a cow or scream at her, she would quit giving her milk. Because anybody's doing that, it's not a very good farmer.
Yeah, that is very true. And I know everything you do is to keep those cows happy and relaxed and making great milk for all of us to enjoy, whether we're drinking milk or enjoying it as yogurt or cheese. So we appreciate it. I know that it's a lot of work, and we have several folks would like to know how many people work there with you on your farm.
We have 2 full-time employees, and we have a retired gentleman who's been with us for 30 years. That comes in probably 3 to 4 days a week, and we also have an individual that makes our cheese for us. So
Okay.
that'd be there's more opportunities for employment in a farm because we also have a veterinarian, we have a nutritionist. Uh, there's so many support people, a crop advisor. So there's a lot of agricultural opportunities for jobs in the future. They may not be milking cows or running a dairy, but there's so many support industries connected with us.
That's a really great point that you make, that there's a lot of careers that are in agriculture and that would support dairy farming without necessarily being a dairy farmer. So I really appreciate that you brought that up. I'm sure a lot of our are thinking about what they want to do, and maybe they just love what they're seeing here. Um, so let's see, maybe time for one more question before we head to the bulk tank room. And so Talia would like to know how old a cow has to be before she can have a baby cow.
Okay. Um, one, let me get this right now. 1 month is equal to about a year in a cow's life. So if a cow is uh, 12 months old, she's 12. Let me get it right. If she's 20, if she's 24 months, if she's 2 years old, that's the same as being 24 years in a person. So at 24 months, the cow's going to have her first baby. Actually, that Mercedes that y'all saw in 24 months, she will be back with her own baby with her mother in the barn here. So,
Okay, that
so
is,
she'll be there. She'll be there with her mother and her aunts and her sisters in 24 months.
yes, and they like to stay together as groups, just like all of our classes like to stay together. I think we can relate to that too. It looks like it's time for us now to move along to the bulk tank room. And if you're able to see the little closed captions, you would have seen that a little fun fact came up that your milk is never touched by human hand.
Yeah,
So
she
you've
had
been
drink
able
it.
to
Yeah.
see that here, where the milk leaves the cow, it goes into a system, and now Bob and Angie are going to show you what happens to the milk after it leaves the cow, where it goes, and what that process looks like. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, the milk doesn't touch air at all till it gets to this tank right here. This tank right here. There you go. That's a smaller tank. We need to have a smaller tank because the volume of milk we have is smaller. If it's too large a tank, you can't cool it properly. But it'll cool the milk down to 40 degrees within 2 hours minimum, probably an hour. Here the milk is coming in receiver jar, and then it's being this is the cow's milk we just milked. It's being transferred into this little small tank to be cooled down.
Okay, and then from there, it goes over to the silver tank that you showed us. Is that right?
That's correct.
And I think you do some testing on the milk to make sure that everything is just as it should be.
Well, we test our milk that we make cheese out of. What happens with the milk that's we're selling part of our milk? A milk hauler will come in here, open the lid on the tank, and take 2 samples out of it. One for the health department, and one for the person that's buying the processor that's buying our milk. And they'll actually run 19 tests on it. They're going to take the temperature of the milk when they pick it up. They're going to take the bacteria count. Uh,
Okay, it looks like
white
the video feed might be, there we go. I think we've got you back, Bob.
Yeah, we have a problem when Angie now get too close. Natural for us. So,
Okay, so you were telling us that they run 19 tests before they take it away from the farm. So just
Yes,
milk that leaves the farm, about how long would it take for that milk to get to the store?
probably at least 2 to 3 days, but definitely not more than a week. Somewhere
Okay,
between sometime between 2 days and 7 days, it would be in the store.
okay. And Bob, can you tell us what's your favorite dairy food to enjoy?
To eat, right now
Yes,
it's yogurt. Yogurt and ice
yogurt.
cream, pretty close tie.
Okay, awesome. Me too. I love yogurt and ice cream too. Let's see. So Amber is wondering, how often do you clean all of the pipes and tanks after the milk goes through them?
Immediately when we get done, we'll rinse it. We have a procedure on our wall here of how we do it, and what we do is that's awful dirty. But what we do, we rinse it. We rinse the line immediately with warm water, about 110 degrees, because we don't want to cook the milk onto the pipe because if you get it too hot, we'll rinse everything we can out of it. After we get that done, then we'll run some real hot water with some still real strong soap detergent in it, and we'll rinse that out until it's real clean. We'll throw that away. Then we'll rinse it with water to make sure all the detergent's gone, and then we'll put an acid in it, the same acid that's in Pepsi Colas, propionic phosphoric acid, and we'll rinse that out, and it'll leave the pipelines themselves acidic, and so it's like you know how you can pickles are preserved in vinegar, so that leaving the pipeline acidic keeps any bacteria from growing between milkings. And then when we get ready to start the next milking the next time, we'll take a mild chlorine solution and flush the line out. It's kind of like if you go to get a glass of water, and I got to have it anyway. I'll put some water in a glass and throw the first glass out, and then get another drink the second time I fill it up. So you're rinsing the line before you ever. But the test is run. They check daily what if we've cleaned our line because it'll show up in our bacteria count on our sample we have.
Okay. Hey, Heather would like to know, how long does it take to fill your tank up?
Well, this big one, we can't fill it all within. By law, we can't keep the milk for more than 48 hours, so we can never fill this one. When we had 160 cows, we could do it in one day, but that small tank in there, we could fill it up in 2 days. So it's sized the right size for the size of our herd now.
Okay. And I think we have time for one more question before we make our next transition. And Elizabeth would like to know, how old can cows get?
We had one cow get to be 15 years old. It was a pet cow. That would be 120 years old as a person. And she was a pet cow. She, in her last years of her life, she was not reproductive. She was a pet cow, but normally a cow is going to live to be about six to maybe as much as 10 years. What happens is they get
Okay, I'm not sure if it's on my end, but what we're going to do now is you're going to transition to your observation deck. And while you make your way, we're going to learn more about how cheese is made on your farm. Okay, so we'll see you on the flip side. And we'll go ahead and start a video about how cheese is made here.
There are many ways to make cheese, depending on the variety being made. Today we are making cheddar cheese. It all starts with fresh, raw milk that first gets pasteurized to kill any unwanted bacteria. Then cultures, friendly bacteria, and rennet are added to help set the milk and start the solidification process. Then a natural coloring is added specifically for cheddar cheese. The milk will turn into a solid curd that is ready to be cut, releasing the whey liquid. The curds will continue to cook and dry out. Then the whey needs to be drained from the curds. After the curds are pressed together, they are formed into blocks and stacked on top of each other. This process is known as cheddaring. Cheddaring is the final point where the acid is produced while the drained curd is kept warm. The blocks of cheese are put through a cutter, turning them back into curds. Then they are flavored with salt. From here, they can be packaged and sold as cheddar cheese curds, or they will be placed into molds and pressed into large blocks to prepare the cheese for the aging process. Cheddar cheese can age for as little as 2 months or up to a couple years. The longer the aging, the sharper the flavor. No matter how you slice it, real dairy cheese is real delicious.
That is so cool. I really wish I had some cheese here with me to enjoy, especially on World School Milk Day, because I know we have a lot of cheese at school too. So I think, Bob, you have made it to the observation deck.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So is there anything else that you wanted to share about the cheese from your farm?
Oh, you got it pretty good. It's just basically cooking, like you were baking cakes, and different recipes and how to do it.
What are the different varieties that you make there at Harvest Home Creamery?
We make the cheddar, we make a Gouda, an apple smoked Gouda, a jalapeno, um, Swiss cheese, provolone, a black pepper. Pretty much what we take a notion to make. So, but the primary, our most popular is the apple smoked Gouda and the black pepper and the jalapeno. Those three right there would be very popular.
Okay, and Nicole wanted to know, how much cheese do you make in a year at your farm?
Not enough.
Not enough?
It's we're making about close to 300 pounds of cheese a week right now, and that doesn't take much milk. It takes about a little over a gallon of milk to make a pound of cheese. So that doesn't take but 3 or 4 cows is enough milk to make the cheese we sell.
Okay, well, I know we have such a nice view of the cows there. So Nicole wanted to know, can cows run?
Yes.
Yes. Where do they run on your farm?
Oh, they have played in this barn here before. They'll get good footing, and it's dangerous for them to run on this concrete because they can't get good traction. They can slip and fall. But they're either going to run in a pasture or they'll play. Sometimes they'll play if the weather's just right. It's real cool. They'll play in this compost and chase each other a little bit.
Fun. Hey, Lauren wanted to know, what is the natural coloring made of for cheddar cheese?
I can't say it just right, pronounce it, but it's made from a bean. It's a bean extract, is what it is. They've used it for centuries, and if that's the reason that the cheddar has that color. You can have a white cheddar or a yellow cheddar. If it's a yellow cheddar, it's got that coloration added to it.
Okay. We did have another question here, and they just wanted to know what happens if a cow gets sick.
We take care of her. we, depends on what her problem is. If she's got a foot problem, we've got a head gate where we can put her in so we can restrain her while we work on her, and then we'll raise her feet up um, and trim her feet. If she's got a metabolic disorder, we might have to give her an IV of some calcium dex or some fluids. Uh, we might give her some big boluses. You're better off asking Angie this one because Angie's a vet technician that doctors everybody, but we don't have much problem with them getting sick. It would be more of an injury where they fell or something like that, and those are, it just takes time to heal. Like if you sprain an ankle or something, it just takes time on a lot of that.
Okay.
Sometimes, you got any comments on that, Angie?
I think that Angie is muted, so I don't think that
Well,
we'll hear from you.
the biggest challenge on that is knowing when the cow is sick. You need to know it before she got sick that she feels bad. So if they're coming up the hill from the pasture, there's one cow dragging back behind all the other cows. She doesn't feel good. You need to look at her to see if it's her feet's bothering her. We'll pin her up in a separate pen by herself. That way we can watch her bowel movement to see if she's got an upset stomach, and we can watch. We'll feed her separately so we know how much she's eating, how much water she's drinking. So since you can't talk, sometimes it's difficult to figure out what's really bothering her.
Yeah. Okay, I think we've got time for just this one last question, and it's from Kyle. And Kyle wants to know, how long does it take the cheese to be ready to sell?
I can sell cheese curds 10 minutes after I made them. If it's going to be, they're fresh cheese curds. See, cheese curds are just the first step. That's before you put them in a mold. It's just little chunks of cheese that haven't been pressed together yet. Um, some of the cheeses, depending on the cheese you make and how you want it, you would age it, and that's where the time comes in. If it's pasteurized, if it's technically you can make cheese without pasteurizing it from raw milk. If you do that one, you have to wait 60 days. And what they're depending on is the acidity in the cheese to kill the bacteria, which a little riskier on to process to count on.
Okay. Well, Bob, I think that's time for all the questions that we have. I think that I can speak for everyone and say this has just been so informative and fascinating, and we really appreciate the opportunity to come and get this behind the scenes look at everything that you and Angie do to help keep milk flowing, in Kentucky and really all over the Southeast. We really appreciate it.
We've had a good time visiting with you.
Well, good. And to our viewers, thank you all so much for joining us today. If you would like to visit Bob and Angie's farm online, you can head to harvesthomedairyky.com. That's harvesthomedairyky.com. You could order cheese, learn more about the farm, connect with Bob and Angie and their hardworking team there. And don't forget, at the Dairy Alliance, we are your resource for all things dairy. I would encourage you to take a look at our website. It's constantly updated with the latest dairy research, news, resources, and recipes. And you can meet even more of our incredible dairy farm families from across the Southeast. Don't forget to head to discoverdairy.com and enroll your class to adopt a cow by October 15th. Thank you so much for joining us. We are wishing you a dairy good day and the happiest of World School Milk Days. That's all for now.